Right. Hi, everyone, and welcome to Turning for Home. We are going to be doing a handicap preview for you today, which is Sunday. Just over a week to go at the festival, and the weights came out this week for all the handicaps, so it gives us a much better idea of where we are and looking at the different races. Still obviously not sure on what's going to run where, with a few horses having multiple entries, but gives us a little bit of a better idea of horses that we maybe think are well in, or it might just help with horses that are going to go in particular places with a bit of luck. We're going to start on Tuesday and work our way through the handicaps through the week. I'm joined today by Andrew Blair White and Charlie Sharp. Andrew, how's things?
Yeah, very good, Gary. Good weather here today in Ireland, and has been for the last week or so. So hopefully that continues. And getting really pumped now. Only 9 days away, I think. So, it gets very exciting. If you can't get excited now, you're in the wrong game.
Absolutely. Charlie, how's things, mate? You had a good week?
Yeah, not too bad. Had a good week. Just knuckling down since the handicaps came out. So hopefully we can find something, the three of us.
Yeah, with a bit of luck. Okay, we'll get cracked straight on, and we'll start with the Ultima, which is the first handicap of the festival on Tuesday. And Andrew, I'll come to you first, mate. Thoughts on this one?
Yeah, wide open race as always. Iscariot 10's in there for, Denise Foster, I suppose we should be referring to now. I would give him more of a chance in the National Hunt Chase than this, though. The Irish have a poor record in the Ultima. There's no getting away from it, even though the last couple of years I've tried to book that stat. I just think it will go to one of these English horses. Happy Go Lucky has been well found in the market for Kim Bailey. I think he boasts good claims. Obviously, Kim got Imperial Aura primed to win the novice handicap last year, and it looks somewhat similarly prepped on this horse. And 147 I don't think is overplaying his chances. But the one I've landed on, he does have the option of going to the Brown Advisory, but I really hope he doesn't, is Lieutenant Rocco. He's in here 7 or 8 to 1 off a mark of 147 as well for Nick Mitchell. He's just been running into the right type of horses. I think he was second to Fusel Raffles at Cheltenham earlier this year over 2.5 miles. He then went and was third behind Mazir des Obeaux. Won over 3 miles at Foss last month, beating Nestor Park 8 lengths. The form of that's nothing special at face value, but I think if he runs in this, I'd give him much more of a chance in this than the Brown Advisory, where you'd have to obviously face off against Monkfish and Clad de Rear and those types of horses. He is a 6-year-old. It would be his first handicap, so you are taking a couple of risks there, but you're getting 7 or 8 to 1 about him, and I think that's a fair enough price on Lieutenant Rocco.
Yeah, fair enough, mate. Yeah, horse which I was keeping a close eye on last time we ran. Charlie, yourself, your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I actually landed on one that Andrew mentioned, was Happy Go Lucky. Unfortunately, he's been, as we've said, it's been found in the market. I think he was quite an attractive price until he was mentioned on Upping the Ante, in which they were slashed, and then he came out and he won at Cheltenham last time out, which for me is, I look at Cheltenham form and it's really important to me. He matches all of the stats when I'm looking at handicaps in massive markets. I look for a profile of what's been winning or what hasn't been going in favour of the winners, and he just seems to be ticking all the boxes that the winners of this race have. 7 of the last 12 winners of this race were in the top 3 in the market, so I really think that's where we should be looking at. I personally, I think he has a great chance in the Isles of Mary. He's off 147, which is 10 stone 13. I think it's a very workable mark, and I wouldn't be surprised to see him kind of favourite on the day, and I think he's got a great chance.
Yeah. Oh, that's fair enough, mate. Yeah, well, for me, you go down the stats, just a few stats. I'll probably put these in at the beginning of the races next time. But like I say, Andrew said, it's a very British strong race, this one. I don't think we've had an Irish trained winner for about 14 years now. Previous course form is quite important. 9 out of 12 had run at Cheltenham at least 3 times before winning this. And previous festival forms fairly important as well. Last year, 3 of the top 4 had all ran pretty well at the festival the year before. There's quite a few more little stats in there, but how much they count, I don't know. I mean, 8 of the last 9 have won with headgear on. Take that what you will. Pretty one I found a bit strange. But I came down to a couple of them, and I'm not 100% sure whether Remastered will run here. He obviously holds several entries at the minute. Maybe one I'd be fairly interested in. But the other one, funnily enough, that I came down to, mentioned there by Andrew, was Lieutenant Rocco. Stepped up to 3 mile last time, and I thought he was very impressive. He got beaten the time before, just didn't quite. I think he was out in front, just didn't quite stay and got pipped on the line. Can't remember who by, but he was up to 3 mile, and I was really impressed with him. Real good, fluent jumper, and he won at a canter last time pretty convincingly. And I think he'll be quite well in here. I think there's going to be a good few pounds to come off him. There is a couple of stats in there that he doesn't fit. The fact that he is 6, and there's 1 or 2 others, but for me, I think he's well in, and I think at he's 7 to 1 at the minute. He's come in a couple of points. He was 9 to 1 last time I looked, so he's probably been backed a little bit. But he will be my selection in here as well. Okay, so quite a few in that one that actually took my fancy. It took a bit of narrowing down that one for me. I got down to about 5 in the end, and was trying to thin it out a little bit as we went on. But we'll move on to the next one, which is the Boodles. Charlie, come to you first, mate. Where are you with that one?
Yeah, I landed on Jane Williams's Balco Saint. He's currently 16 to 1. Going off how I've been working this out, he's just matching all of the stats that you're looking for. He's off 129, which is 10 stone 4. He's not entered anywhere else, whereas I landed on kind of 2 others, I shortlisted it, and it was down to Saint Sam and Historic Heart, and both of them seem to be entered into the Triumph as well. So going with a bit of confidence in the 1 entry. I think this is the target for Balco Saint, and 16 to 1 at the moment. I think it's decent value.
Mm-hmm. Okay, Andrew, yourself.
Yeah, hard one to know. I see. Now, I know they're going non-runner, no bet, but Quilixios is favourite in this race. Surely there's not a hope that he runs in the Fred Winter here. Like, I can't understand that at all. But he's kind of making the market for everyone else. I see the angle behind St. Sam. Obviously, David Jennings put up a couple of months ago, so he's been a bit of a wise guy's horse since then. Don't think he has that much in hand off his mark of 139, though. And the one I've been quite sweet on for a while in this race is Druid's Altar for Joseph O'Brien. He's in here of mark 135. I actually backed him before he ran at Nath the other day, where he beat Stefani, and that form's been boosted since. He was 33 to 1 then. He's now 14 to 1 for the race, and I still think it's big. He boasts, again, it's a race where Joseph's done well in the past. He won the race that both Band of Outlaws and Aramax have won at Nace before going on to win this race at the last 2 years, which is always a good sign. And the form of that race, as I alluded to, has been boosted. Savanian is only 8 to 1 in the race, and Druid's Altar is 14 to 1. And I know there's a bit of a swing at the weights. I think there's £5 in the difference in the weights. But I thought Druid's Altar was more than enough value for his £5 there at Nace the last time. I think he was holding him all the way to the line for a 2.5 length win, and I think if there was another furlong, it would have been 5 or 6 lengths. He was going away at the finish. I think he has very, very solid claims. He's a progressive horse, a jump super, which is something you have to bear in mind in the Fred Winter. It's usually a scrum of a race. These 4-year-olds, half of them can't jump, half of them go off too quick. You need somebody that's going to be a bit more professional. I think this horse is quite professional for a young horse, and I'm hoping he runs very well. And at 14 to 1, he's still a very good each way price.
Yeah, okay, mate. This for me was a race that I found. The more I got into it, the more I just didn't really have too much of a fancy compared to the others, if I'm totally honest. I do, like you said about St. Sam, he's not really my type of bet now, because he has just become a bit of a wise guy's horse, and I think he's probably a little bit underpriced, if anything, now. Mind you saying that, if Quilixios comes out, obviously Zana is still in there, but he won't run. His price will probably shorten again, so I suppose if you do fancy him, he maybe is a bet, but I didn't really. I'm going to keep it fairly short and sweet, this one. I didn't really have much of a fancy. The one I fell on, I'm assuming he's going to turn up here and not in not in the Triumph, is Teahupoo for Gordon Elliott. Might run here, might not. I know he's about 20 to 1, I think, for the Triumph. So I'm not really sure what his plans are. But with Gordon Elliott's yard changing quite a bit at the minute, with obviously horses coming out and stuff, I would take a little bit of a non-runner money back on Teahupoo. Unbeaten. I think I wouldn't say he would have got beat, but the other horse, Willie Mullins, is Humdor fell at the last. That was going pretty well in behind him. I think it was the last race or the race before. But he's won his races convincingly so far. I don't think anything's come within 7 lengths of him. And I'd probably have a little stab on him, but it's not something that I had a massive opinion in, to be honest. Okay, yeah, so we will leave that one there, and that's the 2 races, so handicap, should I say, for Tuesday. We will move on to Wednesday, and the first one that we come across is the Coral Cup. We'll give you a few findings on this one. Decent price winners in this one, and last year was a 5 to 1 favourite, but before that we had some 28 to 1s, 20 to 1s, 16 to 1s, 12 to 1s. So you can get some good value in this race, or have been seen to over the years. We've had 1 favourite and 1 second favourite in the last 12 years, and that's it. The top 3 of the betting. Lightly raced horses tend to do well in it. 17 out of the last 20 had ran under 9 times, so fairly unexposed, if you like. French bred do quite well in this one. 10 out of 19 have been French bred, but near the top of the weights also does well. 9 out of 11 have been in the top 8 of the weights. Again, and I'm going to say this a few times with these handicaps, I'm afraid, but for me, it was one that I found hard to come down on. Sorry. There was a couple I came on that I thought were underpriced. I like to find things that are maybe a little bit overpriced. The Shunter holds a lot of entries, and obviously won yesterday, and they've got this 100k bonus for winning any race at Cheltenham. So I thought he was quite impressive yesterday. Wherever he turns up, I'm not sure which is the most likely. He runs over hurdles, over fences, so I think he's got about 5 entries at the minute. So if he was to turn up here, I would quite fancy him. The other one was All Art for Nikki Henderson. I quite fancied if he turns up here, could end up in the Marsh. He fell last time out at Haydock, but he beat Fiddler on the Roof on his seasonal reappearance. I think his marks, he's off 149, I think, at the minute by looking at that. So he'd be the other one. But if the Shunter was to turn up here, he'd be the bet. They're both 16 to 1, and I'd probably have a bet on the Shunter, non-runner money back. But yeah, they were the 2 that I eventually got down on. So Andrew, yourself?
Yeah, I've been quite sweet on one for a while in this race, which is very unlike me, because the Coral Cup is a desperate race for me in years gone by. I can't make head nor tail of it usually. But I kind of had a thought back in January time about this Mullins horse, Kashari. He was a formerly high-class horse. He's quite lightly raced in recent years. He's had his injury problems. He then went to Cork on New Year's Day and won a handicap hurdle off a 700-day absence or something, off a mark 135. They put up £9 for that, and he was given a nondescript ride, I'd say, in the William Fry handicap hurdle at Leopardstown over 3 miles. Made a bad mistake early, and Paul Townend kind of nursed him home after that. They also said that there was maybe a bit of a bounce factor. Don't really believe that, to be honest. But as a result, he's only been given £2 by the English handicapper. So he's in here of mark 146. Mullins has done relatively well in years gone by, just with kind of classy horses running well in the race. Wicklow Brave obviously was nutted on the line a couple of years ago. Super Sundays won this race before as well. And as you say, sometimes the classier horses at the top of the weights can do quite well in this. This is obviously a French bred horse as well. I think you can still get 10 to 1 about him. I think that's still a fair price given his chances. It's his only festival entry, I believe. They entered him in the Martin Pipe, but they obviously gave him 146, so he can't run in that. And I do think a few of the people in the yard do quietly fancy him. So I'm hopeful that that's true. And I hope that Kashari can finally break my hoodoo of the Coral Cup.
Fair enough, mate. Fair enough. Charlie, yourself, mate.
Yeah, I landed on the 5-year-old Monte Cristo for Nikki Henderson. I know we discussed that he's not been in the best form, but he seems to be hitting a bit of form coming into the festival, which I don't think I had any doubt that was going to happen for him. He's currently 14-1. He's rated 145, so he can go to the Martin Pipe, but I personally don't see it. I think he'll come here. He's got some Cheltenham form, and he's won. He's already won this season. He won at Kempton on Boxing Day, beating Echo in a handicap. I don't really know how that form's worked out, but I think he looks. I think he's a good weight here at 11 stone 2. So I'm going to take a punt on Monte Cristo at 14-1. Yeah,
he was on my narrowed short down list. He was one of them, mate. So I can't knock you bet in there. Okay, swiftly on to the second handicap on the Wednesday, which is the Grand Annual. Give you a couple of stats for let one of you lads go. So 9 out of the last 10 been rated 138 to 147, so roughly where we want to be looking. And 9 out of 12 were novices or second season chasers. So relatively unexposed, I suppose you would say, which I suppose is the case in a lot of the handicaps. Good horse from JP McManus, won this quite a few times. I think he's won 5 from 15 or something like that, I think it is. And Paul Nicholls has a decent record in this, so I won't put you off having a look at one of his. Come straight back to you, Charlie. You can start on this one.
Yeah, I was torn between 2 with this one. In terms of the profile that you're looking for a Grand Annual over the recent years, I was torn between Eldorado Alen and Amula Gold. And I've sided with Amula Gold only because he's not entered anywhere else. Eldorado Alen is entered into the Marsh, the Browns, and the Arkle. So I think it's a bit of a lottery to where he'll end up going. Amula Gold is currently 20-1. Again, has run at Cheltenham before, which is important for me, as I said, and has won 3 times over the trip. So I think he seems to be off a fairly workable rate, and I think 20-1 is a fairly attractive price. So I'll probably be going at that each way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay, that's fair enough. Well, I came down to 3, and 2 of them you've just mentioned. So, but the other one, just for the sake of it, I'll go with the other one, seeing as though you haven't mentioned him, because to be honest, I'll probably, the handicaps tend to be races I just have a couple of little stabs at a couple of horses in the race, to be honest. But the other one, based on the stats that I've just said there about Paul Nicholls, is Tamarok du Matten, is it called? Mathen, for Paul Nicholls. Paul, like you say, has a good race record in this. The horse is 2 from 3 this year. He's an improving 6-year-old. His only defeat came to the hands of Shishkin at Kempton, which is obviously no disgrace. He had a good win at Haydock last day. He beat Gallor by 3 lengths. That was over 2 mile 4 that day, so he stays well. He has form over 2 mile and 2 mile 4. So I think he's a likely candidate to be in the mix here, and at 14-1, he'll be my each way play in this one. Andrew?
Yeah, I'll give you 2 for this over in Ireland. Joseph seems to have 2 good chances in both Intukas and Embittered. I'd be more keen on Embittered, I must say. Again, Intukas just seems to be one of these wise guys' horses, and he just never wins. And I don't he's just won an ordinary maiden hurdle last year. It's the only race he's won in his career, and he's just a nearly horse. And I don't think he's very short for what he is now, I believe. I know he's got a decent enough mark. He fits maybe a trend or 2. But Embittered has actually been running in better standard races. He's been running in the Grade 1 novice chases. And if you're keen on a Nergamine and maybe Captain Guinness and the likes for the Arkle, you'd have to give this horse a decent enough chance in the Grand Annual, because he's been finishing 4th and 3rd in those types of races. And the one, he doesn't fit some of the trends that you've just said there, Gary, but the more and more dry days we get, the more and more I'm coming around to last year's winner, Chosen Mate, here at 14-1. He's off a mark 156. He's been raised he's £9 higher than when he won the race last year. I just think they will get Jordan Gainford to ride him, who's the new man on the block over in Ireland. He's only had a handful of rides. He's already had a number of winners. He's claiming 7. And if he claims 7, or maybe even Jack Foley, another one of the good young lads that ride sometimes for Gordon, he's in effect only £2 higher than last year. He's been a blatant non-trier this year. There's no getting away from it. He doesn't like soft and heavy ground either. I think a bit of better ground on the Friday. The more drying days we get, the more his chance increases. And if they decide to claim off him, which I assume they will, I think he's got a massive chance of going back-to-back in this race. And at 14-1, non-runner, no bet, I'm going to take that chance.
Yeah. Fair enough, mate. Fair. Wouldn't put you off that. Do we have any info on what back-to-back winners are? I know there's a couple of festival races, handicaps, where back-to-back winners are quite popular. I'm not sure if this is one of them or not, but any idea?
I'm not sure. I know the Ultima is usually good for horses who've run well before, running well again. Certainly, Grand Annual, Le President won the race a couple of years ago, having finished I think 5th in it the previous year. So there's a chance that I do believe this has been the target for Chosen Mate. So it wouldn't surprise me if he was to run well, especially if the ground was decent.
Yeah. What's he off this year, Andrew?
He's off 156, which is a big mark, and that's why I feel the need to. I think they'll feel the need to claim off him.
Yeah.
But I tell you, if they get this Gainford lad, he is different gravy.
Is he?
He's going to ride out his claim in jig time. This lad, and I think he's stealing £7. So it's just something to bear in mind. If somebody like him is jocked up on him, wouldn't be any back number.
Yeah. Okay, very good. We will move on to our next race, which is the Pertemps Final, the first handicap on Thursday. Andrew, we'll come straight back to you, mate. You can start us on this one, buddy.
Yeah, geez, this would be probably my equivalent of your Boodles, Gary. I found the Pertemps, the more and more I look at it, the more and more I get confused. I like Imperial Alcazar. I think he's short, though, especially for a handicap such as this. I think the Boss's Oscar, again, they might decide to claim off him, then he becomes more of a proposition, but he'd want to be a grade 1 chaser in time to be winning the Pertemps off 151. Like Presenting Percy won it off 146, Delta Work off 139, and they've ended up being grade 1 chasers. So he'd want to be just as good as the plot they think he is. I think he's plenty short as well. I'd take him on. So not much of a say. If the Nolans were to run Mrs. Milner in the race of 134, she might have an each way chance at 25-1, but I don't have a strong view on the race, I'm afraid.
Yeah. No problem. Yeah. Charlie, yourself?
I'm quite keen on one. It's Come On Teddy at 12-1. I don't know if there's any influence that my nephew's called Teddy. That might be blindsiding me completely. He's 7 years old. He's run 4 times over 3 miles. We know he stays the trip. He's off 134, so he'll be right at the bottom end of those weights. And he's got plenty of experience, having run over hurdles 10 times. I think being right down the bottom of the weights, he may have the chance to improve, only being 7 years old. So that's where I landed with that one. Was Come On Teddy at 12-1. He's been backed in fairly nicely since I've been doing some digging.
Yeah. Okay. Well, like you said, you might be slightly biased because of that. People might think I'm being slightly biased here because of the yard I have connections with. Now, I'm not sure what Mark actually gets in this race, but a horse that's been in fine form since winning at a bit of maybe a bit of a plot job, as people were saying, is Bushy Park. This horse just can't stop winning. Now, where the ceiling is with him, I suppose God only knows, and you would like to think he's maybe not too exposed for it. But if he, like I say, I'm not too sure what Mark gets in. He's right down in the weights. I think he's rated 132. Like I say, a horse that's full of confidence. When you look at this, you don't have to have previous Cheltenham form in this race. So, there's only 3 of the last 12 winners have actually ran at the course previously. 8 out of 12 winners, which is quite high, have won at least 2 races that season. So horses that are in good form tend to come into it. I just thought it was obviously the first horse I looked at, knowing that Phil had the runner here, and I haven't spoke to him about it at all. But he just fit a few of the trends. He fit a few of the stats. And like I say, you can't really knock a horse that's full of confidence and is going out and winning races time and time again. I think he's on, I think he's won about six out of the last 7 or something like that at the minute. And the one that he never won was it? It was a Jumper's Bumper. So other than that, he's in great form. Obviously, he's skyrocketed in the weights from his first win, but like I say, God only knows where the ceiling is with him because he keeps winning, and obviously he would have to improve again to win this. But he would be one that at 25 to 1, fitting the stats that I would be having a each way play on, and he would certainly, I think, he would get out in front and try and hold his own out there. So yeah, that's the Pertemps done. We will move on to the plate next. I will bring up my notes and let, here we are. So I'll fire a couple of stats out before I let one of you guys go. Last 3 years, we've had 2 favourites and a second favourite. So very recently, it's been good at the top end of the betting. Before that, though, there was no favourite for 5 years. So we've had a bit of a change in trends, if you like, for this race. So have a look before that. Yeah, like I say, some big winners, 233 to 1s, a 50 to 1. So it's gone right from one end of the scale to the other, to be honest. The removal of the novices handicap chase could mean that we see a few unexposed types in here that we maybe wouldn't normally see. So that's something to look out for. In times gone by, we obviously had the extra race there for them to be in, and you didn't really see them in this as much. Past 7 winners have been rated 140 plus, so that's kind of where we want to be looking. In fact, I'll knock you out my selection while we're on, and I can't remember if he's got entries elsewhere, but Espoy de Guy for Venetia Williams is my selection here at 20 to 1. Returned this season having had wind surgery following being pulled up at last year's festival, and has come out and won reappearance at Ascot, winning off top weight, which was a really good performance. Subsequently was upped in trip back at Ascot again in December, where he led but just didn't quite get the trip and died off, I think, just after the last. I think he was leading over the last and just died off thereafter. Back to 2.5 mile in January at Ascot again, where Dashel Drasher pretty much ran the field into the ground. Everything was struggling in behind early on that days, and he was one of them, but did well to stay on and finish 4th. He then went to Warwick just a couple of weeks ago, and he was 2nd, finishing really strong. He's a really good jumper, stays well, and as I went through the list, he will be my selection here at a price of 20 to 1. These are all each ways for me. Once you get up and above 10 to 1 in these handicaps, I'll be playing them all each way. But that is my selection. Charlie?
I was looking at this, and the stats of the favourite recently did jump out to me, and I think Farclas is a decent favourite. He seems to match the trend. He's got plenty of experience for a 7-year-old as well. Also, Cocoa Beach suits a lot of the profile, but I actually went against the stats that seem to stare me in the face, because I'm going to go for last year's 3rd, which was Cheltenham course specialist, Mr. Whitaker. He seems to love running around Cheltenham. He's there a couple of times a season. He was 3rd last year, and he's running this year £8 lower than he was last year. I think he's got a fairly decent chance. I don't think I have his odds. He's 18 to 1 in places. So, yeah, I think that's value for a 3rd place in this last year. Yeah,
Can't knock you on that one, mate. Yeah, Andrew, yourself?
Yeah, as you said earlier, in regards to the shunter, I will be very much monitoring which races he goes to. I suspect he'll either go for the Coral Cup or this, because I do think actually he wants 2.5 miles. I think he got away with it at Kelso yesterday, because it's obviously a stiff enough finish at Kelso over 2. So I'd be very interested in him if he was to turn up here. The other one I would have in this is Joseph O'Brien's horse. If he ran Fee Duderie at 14-1. I know you actually quite liked him for a race earlier in the year, Gary. We were on a video, and you put him up and he won.
He fell, didn't he? That on his debut over here from France, he fell, and it was the next race that put him up.
Yeah, he went on and he beat Yukon Lil, who's not a bad mare, Willie Mullins, and then he obviously gave Envoy Elena a small scare in the Killiney Novices Chase at Punchestown. Wasn't great last time in the flow gas. He didn't jump great, but he's in here of 145, and I think that's not a bad mark. These Irish novices usually do quite well in these handicap chases over the years, and I am hoping Joseph might have a decent enough year. His yard weren't firing earlier in the season, and as a result, I think he's got a few quite well handicapped horses, and this might be one of them. Again, a little bit similar to Lieutenant Rocco. He's only a 6-year-old. It would be his first handicap, but he's very unexposed as a result. And I think 145, I'd be shocked if we're sitting here in a year or 2 years' time, this horse wasn't a bit better than 145. So I'd take a chance on him. As I said, you can get 14-1 in a place about him, and that's just a little big for me.
Yeah. He was on my shortlist. Do you know what's happened, and it shouldn't happen? Is I don't know if you've been listening to the podcast with Kevin Blake on, but he is basically writing off any of Joseph's handicappers, and I take a listen too much to what he says, because how many times has he said that Joseph's horses maybe and he doesn't fancy him or whatever, and they've come out and won because it seems to be a bit shrewd like that. Just Kevin doesn't.
The more and more Kevin's going against them, the more and more cash I'm going to have on.
Yeah. So I've probably gone off on there because, like, as you know, he's a horse I really like, so I can't put you off that. But as I was going through them, I'm seeing, I quite fancy that one of Joseph's. Yeah, no, maybe not. Kevin didn't fancy it. No, that's a reason to back it. Right, okay, we'll leave that one there and move on to the next one. We've obviously got 3 on Thursday, so we've got the Kim Muir hot race for the top end of the betting. We've had 4 second or third favourites in the last 6 years. So right at the top end of the betting's where we want to be. 137 to 143 is the sort of average handicap winner here. Every winner in the last 8 years has won this, having not won a race in the same season. So you don't necessarily need anything with a bit of form going into this. Start with you, Andrew, yourself.
Yeah, strongest handicap pick of the week for me in this, fitting all your trends there. The price is somewhat gone on him, but this Run Wild Fred, the fact he's running off the same mark of Ireland of 140, I think is a gift from the handicapper. Probably just sweeten Michael O'Leary back up to hopefully get Tiger Road running in the Grand National. But I think he's a very well handicapped horse. He was second in the Toyestes last day on his handicap debut behind Cocoa Beach, who was well handicapped himself. He jumped super that day. Very similar profile to Milan Native going into the race last year. Hasn't won this season. I think he's got a massive chance. I think he's 6-1, which isn't a great price. Not a price I'd usually be backing for these handicaps, but I've been sweet on him for the majority of the year. And just one, because I do find in the Kim Muir, there's always one kind of English horse that's in and around. You've had Kilfillan Cross in years gone by, Bob Mahler, that's always runs their race and is kind of in amongst it. I think the one this year, one of my all-time favourites, is Shantu Flyer. I thought he got a very strange ride at Wincanton the last day. They rode him for a turn of pace, and this is an 11-year-old with no turn of pace. So I thought it was a funny ride. He's in here off 140. Wouldn't surprise me if Angus Chalida keeps the ride on him, and he'd claim 7, which would help him a lot. He's got a lot of festival form. Placed in the last 2 Fox Hunters. He's placed in the Ultima in 2018 as well. Loves Cheltenham. And I think he's 16-1. I think I think he could be one of those English horses that's just in and amongst the finish, maybe in second or third. And if something's very well handicapped, he'll get beat. But if there's nothing there lurking, he might be able to spring a surprise.
Yeah. No, fair enough, mate. Yeah. Charlie?
Yeah, I had a few that seemed to be fitting the profile here. Run Wild Fred. I've difficulty saying that, was one 6-1. The other 6-1 was the Gavin Lynch tipped Time to Get Up, but I looked at the profile, I didn't really seem to tie up for me. I think he's been backed in because Gavin Lynch has tipped it up, really. I was then left with 3, Hold the Note, Plan of Attack, and I'm going to absolutely butcher this one, Dice Abba. I don't know if that's correct.
Yeah,
Andrew might be able to help me with that one.
Daisha Abba.
Daisha Abba, there we go. And I actually ended up landing on the Henry de Bromhead Plan of Attack. He's 138 marked. Didn't win last time out, which, as Gary said earlier, fits the form. Seems to have fairly decent and consistent results running over the 3-mile trip. I think he'll stay. I think he'll suit the track, and I've really think Henry de Bromhead's going to have a fantastic weekend. I think this is his best chance of landing a handicap runner.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay, fair enough. Couldn't put you off either of them. As always, handicaps always wide open. Another one that I didn't have a massive opinion on. One that I do think is, I mean, he's only 16-1, but I think the reason he's 16-1 is because of most recent form of this season, and didn't really do an awful lot last season in only 2 runs, but has been rated quite a little bit higher than he is at the minute, and that is Jerry's Back. But came out after a long, I think it was about 400 days off, had a reappearance and ran really well. Ascot was 3rd behind Dashel Drasher, but then came out the next day and was pulled up, but wasn't really anything to do with stamina or anything. Made a massive mistake, absolutely blundered the 3rd, and ended up pulled up that day. But just going back to that, sort of forgiving him that mistake at Ascot just a couple of weeks ago. He looked kind of back to a little bit of himself in that race against Dashel Drasher, who's been very impressive this season. So defeating that one's no real shame. And like I say, he's currently rated 142 and has been rated 150, I think, in the past when I saw. So if he is back to his best, he could have maybe half a dozen pounds in hand. Obviously he's jumping, just a bit of a write-off. It's not like him to jump that poor, really. But yeah, I can forgive him that last run, and he will be. De Machine was the other one I took a bit of a look at, but I think Jerry's Back. In fact, on the day I could even well have a little each way. Like I said to you, I often side with a couple of horses in handicaps and just have small each ways on them, so I could end up having a double on both. And it's another race. I know none of the ones I've mentioned there have it, but Headgear is quite a funny one in this race. 8 out of the last 10 winners of horses with Headgear on as well, which I don't know how to take that stat sometimes. It was one I've had a look at in most of the handicaps, and seems to be maybe a few of these types just get it stuck on for a race because they reckon it has more of an effect, don't they? Like for the first 2 or 3 runs, and then you maybe need to change the headgear for it to have an effect again. But anyway, headgear has been quite popular in this one. Okay, we will move on to Friday, where we've got another 3, and we'll start with the county hurdle. Got my notes in front of me here. So Charlie, I'll come to you, mate. I can't give you the stats just yet, but you'll fire away, mate.
The county hurdle, I've said from pretty much day one that I started looking at it. It's a race it's an absolute lottery to me. It's probably the same as the Boodles and the Potemps for you two. You've got runners that could be going in a champion hurdle in here, and I just have no idea where to even start with it most of the time. One that did catch my eye when the ratings came out was Third Time Lucky for Dan Skelton, 143, 10 stone, 13, I think. I think he'll be well in if he doesn't go to Supreme. I think it'd be a bit of a wasted run if they went there. So I think this may be the way that they'll take it. I believe he is, well, I can't find an odd in front of me, 10-1. Maybe a bit short for such an open field, but he's kind of the one that seemed to stand out for me.
Mm-hmm. Okay, mate. Andrew, yourself, mate?
Yeah, tricky race. I'd echo what Charlie's saying there. Very hard to know who's going to run. A lot of these have dual entries, and to be honest, For me, it probably depends on which of these Irish novices decide to go down the Supreme route and which of them decide to come here. I've been, the last couple of days, been on my knees praying that JP does the right thing and send Noel Mead's horse to this, the Devil's Coachman, off 145. I think he's a very well handicapped horse off 145. Again, a little bit like Fiduderie. I'd be very shocked if we're here in a year or two's time and this horse is still off a mark of that. He could run in the Supreme. He's JP's only entry in the Supreme, which would slightly put you off that he might run in it. He's only going to come 5th or 6th in a Supreme in my eyes. And as Charlie said, it's a bit of a wasted run. Blue Lord's the favourite in this. I think he does run into the Supreme, though, because he's got a genuine chance of actually running into the frame.
Yeah.
Irascible would be interesting if he ran in this for Henry de Bromhead, but he too has said that more than likely he's going to run into the Supreme as well. So be interesting to just see where all of these Irish novices do turn up. But I'd be really, really hopeful the Devil's Coachman will run in this, because I don't fancy him for the Supreme, but he is a very good horse, and I think he's well handicapped, and you can get 12 to 1 in a couple of places about him.
Yeah. Okay, mate. Yeah, this just having a look at a couple of the stats. I'm same with you guys in terms of obviously guessing what's going to run here. I think everybody will be the same, that it's really hard to fathom out. Over the years, you have had quite a few high-priced winners in this. I think we've only had three winners in the last 12 looking at this that have been even in the top 3 of the betting. We had some 20 to 1s, quite a lot of 20 to 1s, 33 to 1s and such like. So even when we do get you've got to remember their starting prices as well. So even when we do get the final declarations in, there's still things that come from down the field that win this race. The couple that I narrowed it down to, or the few that I ended up narrowing it down to, Willie Mullins has won this in 2017 with Arctic Fire running off 158 top weight. So he has a record of winning this off top weight. And if Saldier was to end up turning up here, he's off 156, a couple of pounds lower than that. I would quite fancy him. And Danny Mullins was on which he was on a preview show the other day, I can't remember which one now, and he actually mentioned that Saldier could end up running in this. So that drew my attention to it a little bit more, and I had a play on it before that got too widespread and the price came in. He's currently 10 to 1. Is that non-running money back? If I can get 14 to 1 non-running money back. So he would be one that I would be quite interested in. Another one down at about 20s. I'm just going to check my prices there. Yeah, still 20 to 1 is that Cade Boy for Elizabeth Doyle, McManus handicapper, which we tend to see a lot. Not been seen since November. Has only raced 6 times and has a record of 1-1, 2-2, 1-2. So he's always in the mix. Rated 145, I think could easily have a few in hand and could have been. I haven't heard anything on the injury front, so I'm assuming has just been set aside for this. I would strongly fancy him if he was to line up at 20 to 1. He would actually be one of my strongest fancies in the handicaps if he was to turn up here. Again, not really come across any injury news, so I'm assuming he's just been put aside for this. Okay, so that's where I am with the county, and we will move on to the Fox Hunters, or we're not allowed to call it the Fox Hunters anymore, are we? So just the Hunters Chase, which I suppose all the festival chases are Hunters Chases, aren't they? So it's a bit of a wrong one. Knocking some stats out for those that are interested in them. 9 out of 11, been 1, 3, 4 and above. About half of them have been in the top 5 of the top 5 in the previous year's festival. So festival form's quite good here. The past 14 winners had never won over the trip before. So that was one I found quite interesting. I know it's obviously up at the 3 mile 2, so maybe there was 1 or 2 there that hadn't run at the 3 mile 2, never mind 1. Been big for the top end of the betting again. 8 out of 12 have been under 10 to 1. So quite good for top end of the betting in this one. There's only been 1 6-year-old winner in the last 30 years. So quite a long time since we've had any young ones winning this. And one of the last 18 were, only one of the last 18 hasn't been French or Irish bred. So French and Irish bred horses have absolutely dominated this. Doesn't necessarily mean they've been trained there, but bred is where we are. British bred are actually not from 81. So it's a bit of a nasty one. Andrew, come to you, mate, for your selection.
Yeah, I wouldn't have looked too hard into it. Came to Pass's run the other week at Thurles. Just hates heavy ground. He was pulled up actually in a heavy ground point to point before winning this race last year off 66 to 1, I believe it was, for Maxine O'Sullivan and Eugene. The horses do tend, Eugene O'Sullivan's horses usually tend to want better ground, and this horse is no exception. And he loves Cheltenham. He was actually bang there when he unseated Ryder and when trained by Jim Cullity 3 or 4 years ago in the race. One of the years that On the Fringe won it. He was bang there at 3 out, but he made a bad mistake and unseated. He won the race last year at a hack. Jump super. I think Willie Mullins' horse in this is well opposed, but just on the grounds of his jumping's just useless. And they gave away the excuse that he was inexperienced last year, which I can completely understand, because as you said there, Gary, inexperienced horses maybe don't do that brilliantly in this race. And they've given him a lot of racing this year to try and sharpen him up. But he just looks an ignorant sort of horse that just doesn't want to learn how to jump fences. And he is classy. If he was to put a round together, obviously he'd have a massive chance. But at Cheltenham, the fences take jumping, and his jumping leaves a lot to be desired. And I think the rest of them, it came to pass, holds on form. A lot of them, the likes of Staker Wallace, who might have a chance on better ground, but came to pass. He initially went out to, I think, 14 to 1 just after that Thurles run. I see the market's corrected itself and now back into 8 or 9 to 1. I still think that's a very good price.
Just on that one, Andrew, what I said earlier on about the races where back-to-back winners are quite popular, couldn't put you off because this is the race. I've just pulled my notes up, and in the last 9 years, we've had 3 back-to-back winners on the Fringe, like you say, back-to-back. Pasha de Polder back-to-back, and there was another one before that, Saltify for Roger Sweeney back-to-back. So this I couldn't put you off that. I just wanted to put that in, like I said, I knew there was a race there somewhere where back-to-back winners were very popular, and it is this one.
Yeah, exactly, and it also it's one of these races that obviously I wouldn't be looking too much at trainer names and stuff like that. Like the amount of people wouldn't have known Roger Sweeney too much, and yet he had a great hunter in Self-Suffi back in kind of 2012, 2013 time. So I wouldn't be, if people are put off by Eugene O'Sullivan or something like that, that's just completely wrong. Like he's a great point-to-point trainer in Ireland, has been for many years. So I think he's got a lot going for him, and hopefully he can do the double.
Yeah. All right, I'll jump in the middle before I come to Charlie. Like you say, the back-to-back thing made me just to take a look at it, came to pass. But the one that I fell on, again, what you're just talking about there with the sort of smaller trainer angle, not like looking into that too much, was Late Night Pass. Is in very decent form lately. 9 point-to-point runs before he actually went under rules. 5 wins, 3 seconds. Has come under rules. It won back on the 3rd of February at Warwick. A fairly decent win over the 3-mile trip. Like I say, a lot of these horses that win this haven't actually won over the trip before, and he's just got a couple of furlongs extra to go, and he looks like he'll stay. He jumped well all the way around. Under Bridget Andrews, held on well to win in the end. He was getting closed down towards the line, but held on really well. And that was a first run after 340-day break as well. So to stay on like that after such a lengthy break, he was 40 to 1 that day, was really solid. And he's off a mark of 137. Still could be a few pounds to find there. Okay, Charlie, you?
Yeah, I've going off the back-to-back winners. I did look at it came to pass, but I actually went back another year and I landed on Hazel Hill, won this race in 2019. It's currently 20 to 1. I know he doesn't quite match the stats of, not having run over 3 mile 2 but when you see a horse who's run 7 times, they've won 6 of them, and then they came second another time. It's really difficult for me just to look past that and basically say nothing. He's 13 years old, which is a bit of a concern. But as I said, he's only had 7 runs. I don't think he's going to be too like blown out in terms of a run. He only seems to run a couple of times a year, maybe like Album Photo. They kind of just run him once, and then kind of in the spring they'll just set him off for something. So Hazel Hill at 20-1, I think is a fairly decent price for a previous winner of the race.
Yep. Can't fault you there, mate. No problem. That's the Fox Hunters kind of finished with. I'm moving on to the last one, last race on the Friday, which is the Martin Pipe. Probably a race where people are getting dug in because they've had a good week, or people have got sick and maybe or as it'll be this year, turn the telly off. I wouldn't say gone home, but turn the telly off by this point. It'll depend how your week's gone, doesn't it? All right, a few stats on this one. Only 2 second favourites and 1 favourite in the last 12 years. So it's another one where you can get a bit of decent price on your race here. Sorry, I'm just bringing up the notes because I've kind of gotten to the wrong race. I clicked the Mare's Chase instead. Past 3 winners have carried top weight. So that's fairly important to be up there in the weights, I think. 10 out of 12 had run less than 8 times. And David Pipe is maybe one to not side within this race. He's not from 20 when I was having a look through the trainers. So hold-up horses tend to be quite suited here. And age-wise, horses that are 8-year-old and above are not from 48. So age is quite important as well. Charlie, come straight back to you, mate.
Yeah, I landed on Gabby Nacho here. He's currently 20-1, 6 years old, has run 6 times this season, which I think is quite a lot, but he's always been bang up there. Second, first, third. Then we're on quite a disappointing 11th at Leopardstown in a handicap. But since then, they've given him a 46-day break leading up to this race. I think if he's good to go fresh again, I don't see why he can't be up in the frame. I think 20-1 is quite a large price.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, fair enough. Andrew?
Yeah, I've been keen on one all year, wide receiver for this race. I actually had him earmarked for this race back in November time because he ran a couple of kind of very interesting races in maiden hurdles at the start of the season. Just Gordon Elliott in years gone by has had a very good record in the race. He's had a couple of winners in there. Colin Fire would have won the race last year, not coming down at the last. And the one trend with all of them is that they're experienced novices. Colin Fire ran 7 times. Dallas Picton, who came second, had ran 5 times. Squiator, who came third or fourth, had 4 runs. Blow by Blow had 6 runs. So it is something just to bear in mind. This wide receiver's ran 5 times over hurdles. He won a nice maiden hurdle at Leopardstown over Christmas. Robbie Parr, don't know how he wasn't brought into the steward's room after the ride he gave him in the Grade 1 at the Dublin Racing Festival, where he almost tried to pull the horse up before huffing and puffing him into 9th or 10th. He's in here off mark 136, which will just about get him into the race. I believe he's 57th on the list, which looks terrible, but a 136 usually gets you in. The only fly in the ointment, and the market hasn't missed it, is the 139 given to this gentleman, Demi, which could be a Saint-Ouen-like mark. He's now 9-2 or something. I couldn't really be touching him at 9-2 for a race like this. As a result, you can still get 8-1 wide receiver. I think he's been Gordon and Gigginstown's horse for the race all year, and I believe he's got a great chance.
Yeah, okie dokie, mate. Couldn't put you off. A horse that I backed a while back for any race is Torygraph. Now, obviously, holds entries or entry in the Albert Bartlett. I'm not sure if he holds an entry in the Ballymore as well, but I would assume this is his most likely target, but I don't really know, which is why I backed him any race previously. If he turned up here, he would be my pick. He's a horse I'm really keen on, a horse I really like. Other than that, there wasn't a massive fancy for me. One that's already been mentioned earlier on is Monte Cristo, holds an entry here as well. Is another one that I would be interested in, depending on which race he was to turn up in, whether it was the Coral Cup or here. But other than that, I didn't really have a really strong fancy to finish the festival off with. Okay, well, if I was to take a sort of best a best each way, like your best fancy in the handicaps, lads, what, you know, give us one or two, what would it be? Andrew, you want to start that one off?
Yeah, because I've backed it myself, but an each way double between Run Wild Fred in the Kinmure and Kashari in the Carl Cup.
Okay, Charlie.
I'm actually really keen on this Gabby Nacho at 20-1. I think it's a really decent price. Hazel Hill also 20-1. And I like the form. I'm just going back through my notes. I think Monte Cristo, if he turns up in the Coral Cup, I think he's got a great chance.
Yeah. Okay, mate. For me, I'll put it down to 2, being my best 2. In the place, the Venetia Williams Esportigui that I mentioned at 20-1 would be one of my strongest fancies. If Tory Graf was to turn up in the Martin Pipe, I would fancy him, but not 100% sure where he's going to go. And then Kaid Boy in the County Hurdle. They're probably my 3 strongest. Okay, that's the handicaps. Handicap previews done with, and probably going to be back. Well, I'm at SM Media are doing a Cheltenham preview night tomorrow night, which myself and Andrew are both on. So for anybody looking for a preview to watch, it's free to watch on their YouTube channel. So just search for SM Media. And then a week yesterday, so next Saturday, the 13th, I have a preview evening that'll be on the Turning for Home Facebook page. If you can find that and give that a like, all the details are on there. But we've got a good panel where we're trying to raise a bit of money for the Bob Champion Cancer Trust. Bob himself is on the panel, Phil Kirby, Sean Quinlan. We've got Emmett's on there, Andrew's on there, Emmett Kennedy, that is. And Andy Holding, the odds checker tipster, is also on there. There's a small fee to watch that one, but it all goes direct on the GoFundMe page straight to the Bob Champion Cancer Trust. So that's all for a good cause. So I would encourage you to come and watch that one. That is next Saturday, probably starting around the 7:30 mark. All right, lads, thanks very much for joining us. Hopefully we've got a couple of winners in there between the 3 of us. And with the prices that a lot of them are, you only need 1 or 2 winners to make the handicaps worthwhile, don't you? So, okay, I'll speak to you too soon. Cheers, lads.
Cool. Thank you.